Okay, this is part two on can an oil change solve a P011 issue, and this is on a 2014 Nissan Altima. It says 2015 on this owner's manual, but I don't know exactly why the car is 2014. Okay, now in the previous video one, I did show that, or explain that I did change the oil and that the P011 code went away. Now, I will say that when I look at this manual about the capacity with an oil filter change, which I did, the capacity is 4 7/8. I had bought a 5-quart container of the 0W20, I guess it was, whatever the recommended oil was. Okay, and the thing is, I didn't fill it all the way up to 4 7/8 because my normal routine is to fill it up about a half a quart. Below that, let the car run, check the level on the dipstick, then add the final amount, half a quart, whatever it seems to be. And part of that is just to make sure I don't get the wrong number somehow and overfill it. It gives me a little margin. Now, when I did that on this previous oil change and then ran the car, it ran, of course, much better. Now, previously I had reported the car had actually stalled on me multiple times. This time it didn't do that. And also, when I checked the codes on it, the pending code of P011 had disappeared. The problem looked like it was solved. Then, this was probably about a month ago, I guess, or so. I'll have to check the date, but several weeks. And my wife had reported that she thought the car was also beginning to exhibit this same type of hesitation. It never stalled on her. She had always reported that she thought there was a hesitation, that something was wrong. It's when it stalled on me on an occasion when I had the car that I realized this is a serious problem. It's not just an idiosyncratic behavior of the car. And I checked the codes and I saw this pending code. Check engine light never came on, but it did have the pending code. I don't know how long it had it in there. I don't know the algorithm to illuminate the light. And what I've read online, it seems to indicate you might need to get a P011 on 2 consecutive trips. I don't know quite why this stayed a pending code for a long time. Why it didn't illuminate the light, I don't know. But after my wife reported that, well, what I did was I went in and I checked the pending code. Now, it hadn't stalled out or anything, but that pending code had come back. Then I was concerned, of course, that there was a problem that was more serious than simply the fact that the previous oil change had too long of an interval and that the oil had been dirty. The oil level was fine, but the oil was dirty. And so now I said, well, okay, before I do anything, let me add that final half a quart of oil, or at least let me check the dip stick, make sure I know how much, where it stands. And it was a half a quart low. And I added in the half a quart. Okay. Now, previous to adding in the half a quart, I took it out on a test drive and I used my scan meter actually while I was driving it. And here's what I noticed, because I was trying to get some diagnostic information out of this. So on this one, if I go to the vehicle diagnostic and I say I do not want to erase the data from the previous test, I check the IM monitors. I check, since not this drive cycle because I'm just sitting in the driveway. If I checked this drive cycle, for example, and I hit enter, you'll notice the misfire monitor is incomplete. Now, I thought, and the catalyst monitor is incomplete, and the fuel system monitor is incomplete. That doesn't surprise me, since I knew that the catalyst monitor and the fuel system monitor required a drive cycle that you will not get by sitting in your driveway. The misfire monitor, I thought, was continuous monitor. I thought maybe you would get that wouldn't get what it would complete even if you were in a driveway. But this is indicating that it is more complicated on the misfire monitor. Now, when I drove this on the test drive before adding another half a quart of oil, what happened was the misfire monitor never completed in the test drive. And this was a test drive where I drove on the highway, and I drove in such a way that the catalyst monitor was complete. The fuel system monitor completed, even in just one test drive. Sometimes you have to drive that for a long time before those complete. But the one thing that did not complete was the misfire monitor. Now, that totally threw me, because I figured, okay, the monitor is not even completing, so there's some issue why it won't complete, and that's related to ignition timing. Now, my wife has driven the car for several days after I've added the extra half a quart of oil, and what I've noticed is now the misfire monitor is okay. It has completed, and furthermore, the pending code has gone away. P011 had gone away. So the idea here is that in this case now, the oil change that I did cause the pending code to go away. Then the extra half a quart of oil, bringing this up to the full amount, caused a pending code of the same P011 to also go away. Now, that doesn't prove that this problem is totally solved, because, of course, in the back of my mind, I want to know, does this need a new solenoid or a new component? Is there really a component problem? But I first have to rule out that this problem isn't simply solved by oil issue. And when I have checked online at various sites about this possibility that this could be related to oil, I did notice on this time that they simply also said oil level. I've never had a car that was so sensitive to oil level that if you were half a quart, which is to say exactly halfway between the low and the full mark on the dipstick, I've never had a car that when you're in halfway, that it's still going to give you some erratic behavior that's related to a low oil level. It almost doesn't make sense. Now, this car doesn't burn oil, so I can bring it up to the top and it will stay there for quite a long period of time, for an entire oil change interval, actually. So it's not hard to solve that problem. On older cars which consume oil, you might be driving routinely at very low oil levels close to the low end of the low level on the dipstick. That's not a problem as far as the car is concerned. I mean, it's supposed to be okay to operate between the low and the high, but in this case, what it's looking like is you can't operate at the low level. Anyway, that's what's happening here. Now, maybe there is still an issue with the solenoid such that it's only working properly when it's at the high level, but for now, I'm just going to keep the oil level, at the high level, which is what it should be, and maybe that's going to solve this problem. Not sure, but we'll just have to wait and see. If it comes back, hopefully it won't. Thanks.